Hello, and welcome to the second Scouching Report for the 2020 NHL Draft. Today we're going to be flying all the way to Germany and taking a look at Eisbären Berlin winger Lukas Reichel. Reichel is ranked 13th in the most recent NHL Central Scouting rankings, and he might be one of these players that should be available in the second round, but might actually have a lot of value. He kinda came out of nowhere this year as a bit of a surprise to make Eisbären Berlin's team and ended up a top 6 forward for them, playing off and on with some former NHL players like Maxime Lapierre. While he tailed off in his production as the season went on, he still had an extremely successful season for a draft-eligible player playing in a men's league in Germany where we saw a player like Moritz Seider go in the top 10 last year. Reichel did not look out of place in this league on this team, putting up the points he put up. So if you've never seen a Scouching Report before, the way we break down a player is we look at 5 different categories: think, move, get, pass, and shoot. Within each one of those categories, we give the player a number and a letter grade, where the number indicates the overall tier of talent that I saw across the 7 games that I watched, and the letter indicates the overall consistency within that tier that I saw out of that player. So to start things off, we go to the think category. Lukas Reichel is a sneaky offensive winger who showed very brief flashes of being a very intelligent offensive player. He definitely excels at finding open space in the offensive zone and moving pucks up the ice with control one way or the other. It was a little bit inconsistent between the games that I watched, but at his best, he did show a lot of talent in terms of processing the game, especially playing against men, and being a player with such a slight frame. And it is important to keep in mind that this is a 17-year-old that is playing against men. He wasn't really pushing play on his own stick a tremendous amount in this league. He really needed some teammates to give him a hand, move pucks across blue lines where he was waiting in the neutral zone. But he did show really nice flashes of controlling pucks up the ice, moving pucks into dangerous areas, and above all, getting to dangerous areas for shot attempts on his own. He will certainly need to work on positioning within his own zone, and he will need to get stronger on his feet in order to shut down defensive cycles a lot better. But over the 7 games that I tracked, most of which were against top half teams in the DEL, his line when he was on the ice controlled 72% of the high and medium danger shot attempts. That's a pretty remarkable figure, especially for a team that started a little bit slow at the beginning of the year, and Reichel was a major focal point in helping turn that team around as the year went on. So overall, I'm giving Reichel a 1C in the think category. I think there's a lot of potential here for a very highly intelligent offensive winger. He moves puck to dangerous areas really effectively, he gets to dangerous areas on his own away from the puck really effectively, and he certainly needs to find more consistency on a game-by-game basis, but if he can capture his game at its best, I think he could be a very, very nice complementary scorer in the NHL one day. Next up, we have the move category. Reichel is agile on his feet, and you kind of need to be when you're his size, and that's really promising to see. He was one of the fastest players blue line to blue line that I've tracked so far this season, but it didn't happen incredibly often. He shows really nice flashes of skill with his hands, and he shows real nice flashes of north-south speed, but again, this is another thing that will need to be apparent on a more consistent basis. So in the move category, I'm giving Reichel a 1D. He shows really nice flashes of north-south speed, he's an excellent skater when it comes to agility and monitoring a lot of ice in a given period of time, and across the 7 games that I tracked, he had a very, very good record of moving pucks up the ice with control. 68% of the time when a puck was moved across a blue line and Reichel was involved directly, the play was done with control. And for a player with his frame playing in a physical men's pro league in Germany, I found that to be really impressive with all his inconsistencies being considered. Next up, we have the get category. This is where Lukas Reichel could certainly use some work. His lack of size and his lack of strength really shows here. He has trouble along the boards getting pucks back. He has trouble grinding play down and having himself grinded against the boards and losing possession of the puck in the offensive zone. He's just a player that I think is extremely raw in this regard, but when you couple it with his solid skating ability and an actually underrated ability to break up transitions with his stick, it's not all bad for him here. Not every player needs to be an exceptional player along the boards or a tremendously physical player in order to find success in the NHL. It would be nice to see Reichel cut back on the floating that he does, especially in the neutral zone. He just seemed to not be engaged in play when he didn't have the puck a tremendous amount unless it was in the offensive zone. He is good on his own, cutting off transitions and getting at pucks along the boards and trying to loosen them up, so it's not necessarily all bad with him. So in the get category, I'm giving Lukas Reichel a 2C. This is where I think some coaches might have some problems problems with him long term, but this is his first year playing pro hockey, and he is still a slight player on his feet. So I'm not really willing to throw out his potential as a player you can reliably throw out to shut down a defensive cycle in almost any situation. I just don't really see that as a core part of his game moving forward. Next up, we have the pass category. Lukas Reichel is a player that fluctuated greatly as a passing option on his team. One game, he'd only register about 6 pass attempts and connect on 4 of them. Some other games, he'd make 22 pass attempts and connect on 20 of them. It was really hard to get a read on his passing game as a whole, but at the end of the day, what matters for him is putting points on the board and scoring. He did follow a correlation where the more times he got an opportunity to pass the puck, the more times he would complete his passes. In the games where he registered more than 10 pass attempts, he had a completion rate of over 80%, which is really impressive. On top of that, 18% of his pass attempts were to the slot area, that's higher medium danger areas in the offensive zone. And for a player that played in a pro league and put up some solid production, and might be one of these guys people write off as too undersized, and might even be available in the second round of this year's draft, that percentage is actually very, very high. So overall in the pass category, I'm giving Reichel a 1D. There's potential for him to be an even strength and power play threat at moving pucks into dangerous areas from along the boards. He was one of these players that wasn't dangerous until he was. However, if he's not used as a primary passing option, it did seem that he could really evaporate into the game. So this is going to be another area where he's going to need to find more consistency over time. The last category we look at is the shoot category. Lukas Reichel's shot is, I would say, good, but nothing special. But the real beauty with Reichel's shot is that it doesn't need to be one of these shots that can beat a goalie from the top of the faceoff circle. Reichel excels at finding open space in the offensive zone and generating individual shot attempts from high and medium danger areas. Of all of Berlin's shot attempts while Lukas Reichel was on the ice across the 7 games I tracked, 27% of those shot attempts were Lukas Reichel taking shots from the medium or high danger areas of the ice. And of all of Lukas Reichel's shot attempts, 72% of them came from that area. And looking at all of the European Pro League players that I've tracked this year, the only player he trails in that metric is Tim Stützle, a player likely to go in the top 5 of this year's draft. So you might be getting a small downgrade in terms of overall talent and overall shooting instincts for a player that might be available in the second round here. So overall, I'm giving Lukas Reichel a 2A in this category. I'm withholding a 1 because I don't really see him scoring goals that really leave me gobsmacked. He's more finding open space and getting easy tap-ins in front of the net, or just letting shots go from medium danger that just beat a goaltender. I didn't see anything particularly intimidating about his shot, but how he finds open space and how he manages to get his shot attempts is done with a remarkable amount of consistency regardless of the game that I tracked. So the way we wrap up these reports is we look at the best part of a player's game, the good part of a player's game, and the not so good part of a player's game. With Lukas Reichel, the best part of his game, I think, is just the raw potential of it all. He's a great offensive-minded, thinking player. He finds space in the offensive zone when he doesn't have the puck so he can get himself his shot attempts. When he does have the puck in the offensive zone, he does what he can to find other players in dangerous areas, and when moving pucks up the ice, he tries to do it with control as much as he can, and it shows on paper. He's got nice agility, and that does bode well for his long-term upside if you can coach him properly to be a more responsible player, especially in the defensive zone. The good part of his game is his shooting instincts. At the very least, this could be a player that on the power play could be a good asset for your team down the road. He might be a player that gets somewhat easily mitigated at even strength, especially when play gets grinded down along the boards, but when he has a little bit more space on the ice and a man advantage so he can find teammates easier and find open space a little easier, he could be a player that could be a real asset on an NHL power play just by virtue of his shooting instincts. With Reichel, the not-so-good part is his consistency, and I think this stems a lot from maybe a lack of strength that he has. He is still a very raw, very wiry young player, but he is agile, he does move pucks effectively, and he finds offensive space really, really well. He just needs to find a little bit more consistency, and he also needs to find a little bit more consistency in terms of the role that he's playing with his team in Germany. There were major fluctuations in his time on ice and major fluctuations in his usage as a passing option. And I don't really think that that's something that the coaching staff got wrong. He did show a lot of inconsistency with regards to the responsibility that they were putting on him. There would be chances for him to make a relatively easy play that he would just lose off of his stick or take too long to make a decision, causing a turnover, and I feel like that can erode the trust of a coach in terms of the position that they put you in to succeed offensively. But when things were really rolling for him, it was positive, so it's not all bad for Reichel. So overall, I'm giving Reichel a 2A. His game is no nonsense. Yeah, he can be inconsistent, but it was pretty easy to pick out exactly what you're getting with this player. He's an offensive-minded scoring winger who can make a play and find open space in the offensive zone to get shot attempts for himself. It was really impressive that, all things being considered, with his shortcomings in his size and his shortcomings in his strength, he still managed to get himself plenty of opportunities to put points on the board. His first half of the season and his World Junior, to me, solidified his position as a player that's undervalued in this draft. Going into the season, there was really only one German prospect that people had their eye on, and that was Tim Stützle. Now I believe that there are two more coming out of Germany that are perfectly reasonable to think could go in the first round of this year's draft. Reichel is one of them, and John Jason Peterka is another. More on him later. So here's the crazy stat to wrap this up with Lukas Reichel. He's averaging 17 high and medium danger shot attempts per 60 minutes at even strength. For comparison's sake, across the 70 players that I've tracked so far this season, nobody comes close to that. The closest player is Alexis Lafreniere, who is just shy of 14. So you have a player playing against men, one of these undersized players, who is managing to outshoot from dangerous areas everyone that I've had a chance to take a look at this year. That may be subject to change long term, but right now that's a remarkable stat to work with. So that's it for the Scouching Report on Lukas Reichel. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, you can click all the buttons you see below me so you never miss another one. If you really like what we're doing, you could support us on Patreon, where you get access to perks like merchandise discounts, access to my data sheets, and plenty of other goodies. Or you could pick up some merchandise at our Teespring store. All the links are in the description below. So that's it for this one, and we'll see you next time. Hi buddy, good timing.